All right, hello, welcome back to Unqualified Analysis. I got another off-season edition of Unqualified Analysis. I am your host, Caleb. You can follow me on the socials at CalebVUA. While you're at it, just like, subscribe, excuse me, all that good stuff. And yeah, just help me grow this thing, shall we? Shoot me a DM if you want to opine in any way, shape, or form, I suppose, on the old Twitters. I'm going to try and keep this one brief. I do not feel fantastic today. Don't know exactly why. Probably because it's, I ate like shit all weekend and then, had my patented gas station lunch today at work. And if you're wondering, hey, what's a gas station lunch there, Caleb? I'm glad you asked. So it is a Red Bull, either the 8-ounce, 8.4 I think it is, or the 12-ouncer. Don't go to 20. I'm not trying to ride the lightning most days. Every once in a while you got to, hey, deadline's coming up. You're going to work a lot. Why not pop a 20 every once in a while? But on an average day, we're either picking between the 8-ounce and the 10-ounce, or not the 12-ounce one. Just depends on how tired I am on that given day. Today, wasn't super tired. So went with the 8-ounce, 8.4 ounce. And then it's a protein bar. My favorite is the Metrics Super Cookie Crunch. Basically the only protein bar that, I have that no matter what, man. That's, from the time I was in high school. It was one of the first protein bars I tried. And it's from day one. Consistency for years and years. Hadn't changed shit about that protein bar really since I was back in high school. Over a decade that thing has been going strong. I might be the only one buying them sons of bitches because I don't see it going down a whole lot outside of me buying those protein bars, but highly recommend, especially if you got a glass of milk. Oh, boys and girls out there, that's a delicious morsel right there. Then on top of that, because I'm a little fat boy at heart, I go and get the buffalo chicken rollers from the gas station roller thing. You can judge me all you want for the rollers, and I don't really get basically anything outside of the chicken there. But those buffalo chicken rollers, delightful. They only put out like 2 of them at a time at my gas station because I'm the only dumb son of a bitch that's buying those things. They're 2.5 minutes in, I already cussed up a storm there. But that point stands. I'm the only dude that's buying all that. So obviously they're only putting out a couple of those at a time. That's just good inventory management right there. But that's the gas station lunch right there. You would think that with those 3 items, I guess 4 if you count the 2 gas station rollers there, you would say, okay, that's probably saving you money. It's actually not. It would definitely be cheaper if I just went to Taco Bell and got one like the deluxe box, the $7 box. I absolutely would be saving money, but the convenience. I can walk in, grab my stuff, and get out in like 3 minutes. If everything is in place as it should be, I don't need to go to the bathroom or anything. I walk in there, I walk straight to the right, I grab the protein bar, I go over to the cooler, I grab the Red Bull, maybe take a second or two to decide what strength I'm looking at here, what quantity I'm looking at consuming. Then I go right over to the roller, I grab my stuff, go to the cash register, boom, we are out of there. It's an efficient lunch. I got done with my lunch with like 12 to 15 minutes left to spare. And I just chilled out, man. That's the beauty of a gas station lunch. It's not just a lower portion because you just ate like an absolute fat person on Sunday night, which did happen, by the way. It did absolutely happen, and it did contribute to why I wasn't super hungry for what I brought for lunch. But it's a little siesta in the middle of the day where you're out of the office on a Monday. It gets you that nice little break to power through the finish. Love myself a gas station lunch. Now, that will catch up with me at some point. This is not advice, and it certainly is not health advice, because I am nuking my body with caffeine and sodium. I'm getting protein in there. Chicken, protein bar. But at the same time, at some point, I'm going to have to stop doing this. But until that point comes, I'm just going to keep powering ahead. All that is to say, that might be a contributing factor as to why I don't feel the best in the entire world, but I feel like as I talk a little bit more here, kind of working myself into a groove. So, with that, nice little 5-minute tangent on my lunch habits on Monday. I am nothing if not a creature of habit, even though I do try to change stuff up every now and again. this is a sports show, mainly a football show. We are going to get some college baseball in there because I got to talk about Mississippi State. Hey, the only sport that we can reasonably be cocky in has some big changes coming, and I'm going to talk about them. We're going to put that all the way at the end of the episode. You're welcome on that one. But it is a football show. There is some football stuff happening. Did have to manufacture a headline or two because there really isn't much happening, but I'll tell you what, there was some big headlines that came down the pipe really just today. Like the first one I'm going to talk about, get into sad stuff first. Also, let's get a quick sip skirtle of this Gatorade here. Perfect enunciation on skip-a-roodle-doo. That was a lot better that time around. Anyways, first headline, out of that silly shit. Let's get sad here for just a second. Rest in peace to John Brenkis. Many of you may not know who he is. It just kind of depends on when you watched ESPN. John Brenkis had himself a nice little run there back before sports science was like a widely accepted thing. It was really like the dawn of it. He had the sports science segment. I think he had it on mostly Sports Center. I think there might have been an E60 thing that he did like a couple of special stuff. He was well paid. I don't know what he was paid at ESPN, but he was employed for quite a while at ESPN, and frankly, he is one of the formative people of my sports fandom. I always found like the random facts, like the amount of force that Brandon Jacobs could put into John Brenkis. I believe John Brenkis himself got brutalized by Brandon Jacobs with Brandon Jacobs running downhill. And if you don't know who Brandon Jacobs is, just go look up a highlight reel. I mean, if you want to call someone a freight train, there is no greater description of what a freight train entails than Brandon Jacobs. He, like, 6'4", his playing weight was like 260 as a bell cow tailback, a guy that would just run through people. Did not play for a million years, but played a lot longer than you would expect for a guy with that play style in that era with those big physical linebackers. Had some speed to him. Obviously, the weight kind of held that back. He wasn't Chris Johnson or anything, but he had enough breakaway speed to where he was one of the best backs in the entire league. That's the type of stuff that's like fascinating. The amount of force that he could put into like a random test dummy. That's what John Brenkis was doing with this sports science stuff. Sorry, I got distracted by Brandon Jacobs when getting into sad stuff. I do apologize, but yeah, I mean, rest in peace to John Brenkis. I believe he did die of I don't want to say exactly what it is because I'm not entirely sure. I think he was battling cancer or some sort of long-term terminal disease for quite some time. Just sad stuff. Loved John Brenkis when I was a kid. Another one of the formative guys from my childhood, going up into the rafters, so to speak. So yeah, rest in peace to John Brenkis. And you know what? I will remember you and cherish the memories that I have from my childhood of watching you on TV, for the rest of my life. When I think about the formative experiences of my sports fandom, John Brenkis was instrumental in that. So, again, rest in peace, condolences to his family. Let's get into more of what our wheelhouse is on this show. Talking about headlines, man. We're just filling the space until the season gets started up again. We're fiending for football right now, man. We're fiending for football. Not too hard because summer is upon us. Golf season is in full swing. Scotty Scheffler, by the way, had another one of those fun stats. I think I'm actually going to pull that out there at the end. While it is still current, my apologies. Nonetheless, we'll just kind of keep it moving from there. We got headlines for you, and mostly in the NFL, a little bit of college, but let's get into all this. So first off, because I don't have this one written down, I might as well hit it quickly here, because I don't really think it's a huge deal, but video of Stephon Diggs did come out. That's just Stephon Diggs being Stephon Diggs. He was on a boat. Cardi B is on the boat. He's dating Cardi B, if you weren't aware. If you don't know who Cardi B is, maybe that's for the better. I don't know. It's not necessarily a slight against her music, though. I am not really a huge fan. But not knowing Cardi B means, like, you're not super exposed to the internet, I feel like, which is generally a plus. So, hey, good for you. But he is dating rapper Cardi B. They're on a boat. The main crux that many people were focusing on Twitter, because the substance use is just so old hat at this point for partiers on Twitter, and people in that scene, I suppose, that being the rap scene. Don't twist my words on that one. So people were focusing on Stefon Diggs flirting with women, having them call him daddy before he hands over the package, so to speak. We'll talk about the package in just a second. That's just Stefon Diggs being Stefon Diggs right there. That's really, if you didn't know that this was going to happen at some point, you just didn't know Stefon Diggs. Because listen, every time something like this pops up with Stefon Diggs, the first video that circulates is that one where I can't remember who it was doing the interview. I can't remember if it was like Andrew DePaula, the long snapper, or someone like that. It looked like a player. Maybe it was a reporter. I apologize to that man. Either way, there was like a guy going through the locker room asking players a question of the main question was, what player on the team would you least like to date your sister? And almost invariably, almost to a man, everyone on that team, because this is back when Stefon Diggs was on the Vikings, everyone on that team said Stefon Diggs. Every single one of them. And there was no explanation, because there are some things that you just can't air out a teammate for on a video that you know is going to go onto social media. But we knew this was a thing. Everyone knew Stefon Diggs. Hey, he's a wide receiver one. That's wide receiver one behavior right there. No shade. Maybe not the best guy in the world, but he does fall a little bit somewhere behind Tyreek Hill as far as like being a bad guy is concerned. I mean, he's not an outright terrible dude necessarily. He's just wide receiver one behavior, man. Just wide receiver one behavior. That's not really what the NFL is focusing on, though. The NFL is focusing on the fact that after he had these beautiful women call him daddy, he proceeded to pull out a small baggie with pink powder in it. Don't know exactly what it was. Honestly, I don't party enough to know 100%. You know, I have a pretty good idea of what it is for the most part. Just something to have a good time. Just something to have a good time and be real happy for a period of time before a steep drop-off if you take too much of it. So that's really what was being focused on. I guess the NFL is probably investigating. I would imagine there's going to be a quote-unquote random drug test for Stefon Diggs here coming up, and then we'll see what the results of that yield. This is a big non-issue, though. I know Mike Vrabel talked briefly about it, just saying you want to make good decisions, yada, 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 just toning the company line pretty much. I don't think there's going to be much that comes out of this. Maybe you get a fine. If there is a fine, it probably comes from the team in all likelihood, in which case you most likely won't hear about it. It'll be handled quietly, like I think you should. It's not a huge deal. This is just, listen, it'd be one thing if he was handing out needles and shit, or, I mean, even if it was coke, it's still not the biggest deal in the world, but I think it's a bigger deal than handing over the pink powder, even though you could argue they're roughly a similar level of offense there, I suppose. But still, this is not a big issue. Now it is a big issue if he, tests positive on a drug test and he gets suspended. But not a big issue in the immediacy, and obviously the Patriots have no plans to cut him. That would be a major overreaction, I would say. So as long as nothing else pops up, Stefon Diggs is fine. There's really not any reason to make a big deal out of that. So we'll just keep it moving from there. I said my piece on that. Stefon Diggs, hey, not a role model, but that's wide receiver one behavior right there, man. Everyone remembers the White House. Even if you didn't watch that era like me, you know about Michael Irvin and you know about the White House from those fantastic 3 for 30. 3 for 30. That's a bad shooting percentage. 30 for 30, that's a fantastic shooting percentage. One of those documentaries, I forget exactly which one, but you got some good info off of that based on that. Wide receiver one behavior. We'll leave it at that. Kind of a big time shocker here that just popped up out of nowhere on Monday. So the Lions All-Pro center Frank Ragnow, a guy that you were expecting to be there for probably the next 5 years or so at the very least. He's just 29 at this point. Kind of out of the blue, just announced his retirement. The monumental blow to the Lions offensive line. I mean, obviously that's a personal decision. No one saw it coming when Andrew Luck did it either. At the was he 28 when he retired? He retired very young. And that's, hey, these things happen sometimes. I mean, especially in a violent game like football, it's not like basketball where, yes, the mileage on your body does slowly break down stuff. You do get injured over time. It's a lot of soft tissue injuries, though, with the exception of the odd, like the Kevin Ware situation going on. You know, major injuries like Achilles, ACLs, obviously you get all of that. Not the broken bones and the little bumps and the aches and bruises of football, though. So football, I understand younger retirements a lot more than I do about, many other sports, I would say. But regardless of the sport, regardless of the circumstances, it's a player's ultimate decision when they decide to walk away. And obviously Frank Ragnow, offensive line, very middle of that offensive line, invariably a place where you're going to get a bunch of little injuries that they aren't really on the injury report. They just kind of are things that pop up. Maybe it's a broken finger here. It's a sprained wrist there. Just little stuff that piles up slowly but surely. Sprained knees, the bad shoulders, all that sort of stuff. Where you just keep on playing through it, because if you don't play through it, someone's going to come in and take your job. That's just the brutality of the NFL, and that's the business of the NFL. I can understand, especially at a very physical spot like that, why you would walk away early while you still can. I can understand very much the other way around, where you stick around for a long time. But hey, if you want to prioritize your health and your longevity and your ability to be mobile and live relatively pain-free with however much he can do that at this point later on in life, that's, hey, more power to you. But with all that out of the way, happy trails to you, Frank Ragnow. We'll see if he decides to make a comeback later, but I feel like offensive linemen are a lot less prone to make these types of comebacks, I would say. I feel like, especially at that position, you remember the bumps and bruises a lot, and once you're out of the game, it's probably better for all parties involved if you stay away, just from greater potential injury risk sort of perspective, from a motivational perspective, from a callous perspective, if that's even like a scientifically provable thing. Probably better to stay away. From a football perspective, though, this is a massive loss for the Lions, and it really solidifies in my mind even more that I just feel like the Lions are going to be running from the back. Really, maybe not all season, but I think when we look up at the end of this thing, I think the Bears are going to be much improved. If for no other reason, then they're going to build an offense around Caleb Williams. And I think, listen, year one was year one. Caleb Williams had no support system around him as far as the coaching staff is concerned. Keenan Allen ultimately was washed. Is what it is there. He showed up a lot heavier than I think people expected. Rome Odunze is still there. Cole Kmet, maybe not a top-end tight end in the league, but still a very solid tight end. DJ Moore, still the number one receiver there and still had a pretty damn good year last year. There's a lot of bones to come in here and make some. Colston Loveland as well, who they just drafted. Fantastic athlete at tight end out of Michigan. He's going to factor prominently. We know Ben Johnson loves to use the tight ends. Just go look at Sam Laporta, how he was using that Ben Johnson offense. I think they're going to be much better, and the defensive personnel is still nasty, I would say. They have a couple deficiencies here and there, but by and large, nastiness on the defensive side of the ball. I think they're going to be much better this year. Vikings are a borderline Super Bowl roster right now. I think they have the best team that I've seen the Vikings ever have in my lifetime, at least as long as I have been watching. Important caveat there, because I'm sure teams from when I was a young kid and did not watch football may be better than this one that I'm looking at right now. But all we need is average from J.J. McCarthy. Forgot his name for a second. And we're going to be, potential for a deep playoff run, even with a rookie, for all intents and purposes, a rookie QB, even though technically second year didn't play at all in the first year. Then you look at the Packers, they still have Jordan Love. They still have really good defense. I think they nailed it with that hire of Jeff Hafley last year as their defensive coordinator. They're only improving on both sides of the ball. They drafted a wide receiver in the first round. Wide receiver I actually really like in Matthew Golden for the first time in decades at this point. And of course the crowd went wild in Green Bay. Hey, don't have to love your division rival to admit that that's an awesome scene right there. But that's all to say, the North is just as, if not even more stacked than it was last year. And I just feel like with the brain drain, with getting 2 coordinators hired away as head coaches, the additional brain drain that comes with that because those coaches bring coaches with them. Now, neither of them wanted to raid the staff for the Detroit Lions, but let's call it what it is. They absolutely raided the staff of the Detroit Lions, and you just can't get past all of that. Lose your starting center to retirement. That offensive line is the straw that stirs the drink, and especially when you factor in attrition that you can just kind of chalk up and that'll be there no matter what. It is still a very good offensive line, but it's undoubtedly not nearly as good as it was 24 hours ago, or I guess 48 hours ago as you're listening to this, when Frank Ragnow was still on the team at that point. So I don't know, man. The Lions, if Dan Campbell can come back and make this a playoff team, and get them to competing for the 1 seed again, he's vying for best coach in the entire league. If after all that he has lost this offseason, if he's able to go out and do that, I would never question Dan Campbell again easily. Very much in the conversation for best in the league if that's what happens. I just don't think. And that's not to say that I don't think Dan Campbell is probably, at the very worst, a top 10 head coach in the league, probably top 5. I respect the hell out of what him and Brad Holmes have done there, rebuilding the roster and building a culture from scratch, essentially. Coming in after Matt Patricia, if nothing else, Matt Patricia stripped it down to the screws and just kind of screwed it all up, got it to rock bottom, and then Dan Campbell came in and built it back up from there, and you got to respect that, frankly. And looking at what Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes have done in tandem, it's truly a beautiful thing. So I would say at the very least a top 5 head coach no matter what, but it would take a Herculean effort to go out there and still put up 12, 13 wins after all that they've lost. So that's another tough one for the Lions, but hey, a team that we're going to be watching by default. That's what happens when you're the 1 seed the previous year. Obviously, you're going to have a lot of eyes on you once again, and they do still have great personnel on both sides of the ball. Remains to be seen what Aiden Hutchinson looks like coming back off of that broken leg, but one step at a time here. One step at a time. On paper, very good roster. They have studs on both sides of the ball, especially they still have that backfield. So I don't think they're going to be bad. I just think they're going to drop some games here and there, and then you're going to look up. They're going to be like 9-8, 8-9 at the end of the year, and not a bad team by any stretch of the imagination. You just see the effects of the brain drain and see the effects of just the 1 or 2 little things here where the roster isn't quite as good as it has been. So we'll be watching though. We will absolutely be watching. Next one up here. I'm going to go for a little bit on this one, I think. So, a little playoff discussion here, because I feel like there's a little bit more nuance and, a lot more factors to consider about the college football playoff than I've been given it, I suppose. So here's a little bit of a dissection of what we're anticipating here for the playoff, or just kind of a pros and cons, a little open discussion. I say open, it's really just me, but we're going to 16 no matter what. That's something we're just going to have to live with whether we like it or not. That's, comments directly, directed towards myself on that. It's worth weighing the pros and cons of each format, though. So we're going to do that. It's really like, there's one format that really kind of, I guess, for lack of a better term, there's really one format that's like the leader in the clubhouse, so to speak. One that is probably going to end up being what gets passed pretty much no matter what. So we'll talk about that one first. It's the 5+11 model. So it's the 5 conference championships. You just tack on 4 more automatic spots. Not automatic, 4 more at-large spots. In theory, this is the one that I would think would be the fairest, especially if you just rank them 1 through 16. So, again, I've heard a lot of counterpoints to this, and I'm still mulling it over in my mind. Maybe I should just let it sit there for a little bit and see if I could come up with a little bit more clear-formed opinion on this. In theory, though, if you're gonna, you're gonna have to have the automatic bids no matter what, incentivize the G5 and the lower level conferences in the Power 4, or there's not a Power 4, it's a Power 2 and then the next 2. So, motivate the conferences in the next 2 that, maybe you can give yourself a chance to win, all that sort of kumbaya bullshit. And then from there, whoever the next 11 best teams are, you go ahead and you add them in. So in theory, I think that's the way you should do it. I think it's probably the fairest way to do it. In reality, these are humans selecting the top 16 teams. Obviously, we've seen in the past, there's no good or correct way to evaluate a team and to rank them when you're doing this sort of thing. So it's a little bit of a moving target, a lot of a moving target, actually. And no clearer example of this than, excuse me, 2 years ago, excuse me, oh, excuse me, got something stuck in my craw. Un momento, por favor. Whew. I don't know what that was. That one snuck up like a son of a bitch, man. I'll tell you what. But, where even was I when that whole thing was going on? Okay, I got it. So, you saw it just 2 years ago with the college football playoff, with the committee deciding to put in 1-loss Alabama over 0-loss Florida State, who just won the ACC. In no small part because Jordan Travis broke his ankle. Jordan Travis now medically retired, not strictly speaking medically retired, but never really came back from that gruesome injury that he suffered in college. Probably for the best. He was more of a backup quarterback coach sort of dude anyway, so just go back down to Florida State and do your QB coaching thing. I think that's probably the best course of action for you. But that's really the flaws there. Because, I mean, if we're talking deserving, and that's, the lexicon they were using for a long time, and then they tried to gaslight the public into saying that it's never been in their lexicon when it had been for the longest time. If you're talking about most deserving, which is how they've been ranking it for the longest time, you would put Florida State in there at that 4 spot. But evaluation of better team, I would agree that they made the right decision if they were talking about the better team and then putting in Alabama based on that. But that's the problem with people ranking these things, because sometimes it's granular as that. Other times, I mean, when you're talking about the bottom couple automatic I keep saying automatic. The bottom at-large qualifiers there for the college football playoff, I mean, it's basically a lot of, have I watched this team all season? What do I think of them just based on the small sample size that I have? Got to factor in internal biases too. I mean, pretty much all these people, the steering members of the committee are always like ADs at major schools, like North Carolina with what was his name? I forget. Whoever the North Carolina AD was, that was kind of with same sort of drama with the NCAA selection committee for basketball with North Carolina getting in there. Same sort of stuff happening in football with there's a lot of internalized biases, a lot of politics. I still probably like it better than the computers because the computers sometimes spat out a result that didn't make a whole lot of sense there. But at the end of the day, it's a flawed model because there's humans. There's never going to be a perfect model for sure, but this one definitely is going to gear more bias towards teams that pass the eye test, I suppose, which I don't necessarily hate, but there is downsides to that. And at the same time, if you're sitting pretty at like number 6 in the country, or like say you're at like number 8 in the country, and you're in like the last week of the season, you're more likely to put it in cruise control there at the end, especially if you have no chance of making it to the conference title game. I feel like you're putting it a little bit more into cruise control there than you otherwise would, and ultimately there's just flaws with the model in general, just because there's so many at-large spots. Who would have thought? The counterpoint to that, and the other, I mean, it's kind of an amorphous proposal because there's not really been a clear-cut proposal one way or the other, is expand the auto bid structure. Maybe you do it with, it's paining me to say it right now, but I'm going to bring up the counterfactual to this in just a second, or the counterfactual to the 5+12 model. Could be 4 automatic qualifiers for the Big Ten and the SEC. That'll get you to 8. Could be 2 automatic qualifiers for each of the ACC and the Big 12. Then you still get the 1 automatic qualifier for the G5, and then you have 3 at-large bids there at the bottom to bring the full total to 16. Now, on the face of it, it's stuff that I railed against just like 2 weeks ago. It's like you can't treat college like you can treat the NFL, where it's just like, you know, you win your division and you go to the playoffs no matter what. I was obviously talking about that with conference champions, and I already don't like that we're just blanket adding auto bids for conference championships, mostly and maybe unfairly directed at the G5, though I think Boise State probably would have been an at-large bid, even without the automatic qualifiers, just based on their overall ranking. I think they ended up ranked high enough to where that would have been there. Now, is that possible justification for the seating there? Perhaps. Probably likely, even, I would say. But at the same time, at least that made sense last season. Now, on its face, I detest everything about that. I mean, you're talking about 13 automatic qualifiers. Are you kidding me here? And only just those 3 at-large bids? I mean, what's the motivation supposed to be if you're locked into one of those at-large bids? Now, the counterpoint to that is you don't do it based on rankings. You do it based off of conference standings. And now this is a fascinating one to me, because the more you think about it, the more it actually makes a lot of sense if you're talking about college football as a regular season product, which really, if you truly think about it, bowl season is kind of a sham. I'm not saying it was a sham before necessarily, because obviously bowl season was the shit for the longest time. Kids, you don't remember this because you were entirely too young to remember this, but there was once upon a time, before Christian McCaffrey opted out of the bowl game, I believe it was the Rose Bowl actually, or maybe a lesser bowl than that, I don't know. Before Christian McCaffrey opted out of the bowl game with Stanford, and for my money, he wasn't the first to do it, but he was the most prominent player to do it and really started the trend of guys opting out of bowl games. Before that point, there was a beautiful time when if your quarterback was going to be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft and you were playing in the Alamo Bowl, by God, your quarterback was playing in the Alamo Bowl, and it did not matter the draft stock. And all of the players that had high draft stock, not even just the first rounders, the second rounders, third rounders, everybody in between had the pride to go out there and play in bowl season. Those were the good old days, and we will absolutely never get that back. I'm just resigned to it. You can't put that genie back in the bottle. He's escaped into the ether, and you just, hey, he's not coming back. Out of wishes, man. He's free at this point. He's not going to choose to come back to you. That's bowl season at this point. So, especially now, more than ever, I would say college football is a regular season and a playoff product. I would say putting more emphasis on the regular season because it lasts for much, much longer than the college football playoff. Though if they keep expanding this bullshit, it's gonna be challenged. It's gonna challenge the length of the regular season if they keep doing this. Hey, maybe they stretch all the way out into April. We'll see how it goes here. Where they just put these kids' bodies in a meat grinder. No one cares about the athletes though. They care about their bottom line when they're making these decisions. Neither here nor there on that front. But on the face, you would say I'd hate this. I think this puts more emphasis in the regular season because now, especially within conference, you are laser focused on your conference standings more so than anything else. And the conference standings is a reflection of the regular season and head-to-head matchups between teams within that conference. I don't need to explain conference standings to you. I think you all pretty much understand that pretty well. But what putting emphasis on those conference standings does put an extra sort of lens on the regular season to where you can't just rely on your reputation in the media to carry the day for you whenever you get down to crunch time. Usually when you get down towards the end of these seasons, you can't tank games because the conference standings are too close, especially if you're in that 3-4 range. Hell, even if you're at number 2, you're not really safe. Or really number 1 even. Most times you're not really safe from the people, especially in the SEC if we're talking about. You're not that safe from the teams that are down at 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 for that matter. It's usually more closely bunched, with the exception of some seasons where there's just dominant teams at the top. They're going to have less and less of that, especially with the proliferation of the transfer portal. But I don't rule that out as a possibility. It is certainly a possibility. I will grant you that. But that emphasis on the regular season is going to lead to a better product. Now, you still have to figure out the other factor in this is how do you curb the player movement to a more reasonable level. I'm not telling you to do away with it entirely. Just make it a sustainable model. That's truly all anyone that is reasonable or should be listened to is asking for. No one in their right mind is saying take it back to what it was before where we're just not paying them or the schools aren't paying them and we're letting boosters be sketchy about things to get players compensation. No one is saying to go back to that outside of maybe some hardliners on that front, which again, you don't need to listen to those people anyways. All we're asking for is to put some guardrails up and to get this thing moving in the right direction. You got to do that still. But I'm coming around on this multiple auto bids format where you just go full in on the auto bids, you go full in on the conference standings, and you just kind of make the whole playoff based off of that, based off of a fight in the regular season. I think that would, honestly, I'm coming around to it. I'm starting to think that might be the case. In order to cure the disease, we have to go further into the sickness sometimes. And listen, even 2 weeks ago, I would not be sitting here saying this. I certainly would not, but respected voices in the college football world have talked about this at length. And I'm coming around to the idea, man, there's not going to be a format that I truly love. To me, if you're not going to like 6 or 8, go back to the 4-team, just go back to the BCS. But at this point, the playoff is never going to shrink. It's like taxes. They're never going to cut them in the grand scheme of things. It's never going to, the taxes aren't going to go down over time for the most part. So you're just going to have to live with what you get, unfortunately. And that's where we're at. We're making the best of a bad situation. I think doing that, I think the best way to do that, maybe not the best way. I'm not really sold on either one right now. I'm still working through these feelings, but this is the one that's the leader in the clubhouse for me. More auto bids might not necessarily be a bad thing, and it makes my blood curdle just to say those words. But you know what? Strange times, man. They call for creative solutions, and that's a creative solution that might just be crazy enough to work. So that's my 2 cents on it. Again, I still don't really know how I feel about either, and we won't know the true impact of either format until one of them is implemented. But that's just my 2 cents on it for now. I feel like we're going to get resolution on this if not before the season, sometime fairly early on in the season as far as the 16-team format and what that's going to look like. I don't think we're going to have to wait long to get answers on this. We'll see if the House settlement follows suit here soon. Who knows? Hey, you never know how long these settlements will take to finalize. I'll tell you that. That's for sure. Next one up here, we just got a couple more. After picking him up in free agency last year, we're going back to the NFL now. The Eagles are trading edge rusher Bryce Huff to the 49ers for a conditional third-round pick. I would assume that bumps down to a fourth based on playing time incentives. Either way, I don't know if it's even what I would give up for him. He only had 2.5 sacks last season, and he just signed last year a 3-year, $51 million deal, which is, for all intents and purposes, it's the modern formatting of the deals. I think this next year is probably the only one that's guaranteed, and then if the 49ers really want to, they can just get him off the books the following year if he continues to not live up to expectations. But change of scenery, pass rush needy team there with the 49ers. It feels like a desperate trade to just try and tread water, and I don't think this is going to be enough. But I mean, from a needs perspective, I suppose you can't fault the move. You can certainly fault who they decided to go for. But at the end of the day, what are they going to do? Trade for Trey Hendrickson, pay him $30 million a year when they're already paying Nick Bosa $30 million a year? It's just not feasible. So of the options available, an admittedly expensive option for what I was expecting, but still, I mean, hey, you got to try and address your needs somehow. We'll see if John Lynch is right. I'm not sure about this one, but I'm not the GM of the San Francisco 49ers, so who's to say? Greater opportunities with the 49ers for sure. So obviously rooting for them. Hey, I want all the players to get paid as long as they're not gigantic pieces of shit, I suppose, and I don't really know anything about Bryce Huff, so hey, go get your money, King. That's all I have to really say about that. But don't think that's the move that's going to save the 49ers. I'll just put it out there. And then finally here, I told y'all it was coming. We're winding down on this episode. Selfish interjection. I got to talk about Mississippi State baseball here. So don't really talk about this in the podcast because not a single soul here is showing up for Mississippi State baseball or college baseball in general, for that matter. There's other shows for that. But I do have to say, we fired Chris Lamanis. I mean, guy that won a College World Series. Thank you for that. But ultimately, the best players on that College World Series team were players that he inherited from a guy that had a great couple first seasons, then just decided to have a little scandal in the building there. And you can go dig on that if you really want to. I don't know what. I mean, I don't know what is known and what is not known publicly. Let's just say there's some fairly credible and consistent whispers within the Mississippi State community as to why the predecessor to Chris Lamanis got fired. But the guy before him, Andy Cannizzaro, did a good job of recruiting, brought in very good players, and that was kind of what Chris Lamanis rode to that college title game, College World Series. Jake Mangum on that team, now with the Tampa Bay Rays. Multiple players on that team now in the pros. So that 2021 team, actually no, Jake Mangum wasn't on that team. What am I talking about? Oh my God, that's not true at all. That's not true at all. I might forget like all the players on that team. But still, I love Mississippi State baseball. Just maybe not quite as much as some people. Either way, they fired the head coach. Justin Parker is the interim guy. Pretty solid pitching coach, but ultimately not enough to save Chris Lamanis' job. He's probably looking for a new job, and he's a very good pitching coach. So he'll probably find a job somewhere, and he'll probably land on his feet somewhere in major college baseball, just maybe at a lower level as a pitching coach. Hell, maybe even lower level as a head coach. He didn't do a bad job getting Mississippi State to the postseason here, even though he did lose in the regional. That's not his fault. That's part of the roster that he inherited. He's a pretty damn good coach. But now Mississippi State, after the regular season was over, they didn't really waste any time in getting a head coach. And Justin Parker had some things to say about how the head coaching search was handled, especially with rumors coming out about the new head coach when the current head coach was trying to prepare for an NCAA tournament, a regional. And, that may contribute to why they didn't win and get, past the regional. Only one team's getting past the regional, though, man. That's just kind of the nature of the beast. We fought all the way with Florida State to get to the promised land, and we just didn't quite get there. It is what it is. It is what it is. We put up a good fight. But, drama aside, come away with a pretty good hire here. Easy for me to say. Got new head coach Brian O'Connor, longtime Virginia baseball head coach, won a College World Series with them back in 2014. Now, granted, that was 11 years ago at this point. I fully recognize that. But a guy that consistently got the most out of his roster with less than stellar resources to work with there. I mean, Virginia is a nice university. They are a much more academic institution than an athletic institution. That's just, you got to call it like it is, man. They have their priorities, and they're sticking to their guns. They're much more about the school part than the athletics part, with the exception of, like, basketball, I would say. And baseball suffers from that. So less resources than he would get at an SEC school, and got the most out of those rosters. Did not have a great season this past year, but has been a consistently good program year after year after year. And now we give a guy like that the resources of a program like Mississippi State. And you may think, Mississippi State? What are you talking about, Caleb? Mississippi State, they have like the lowest NIL pool in the entirety of the SEC for college football. And you would be right about that for college football. But baseball, why don't you just do me a favor here? Go look up the top 20 largest crowds in college baseball history, and you tell me how many of those are Mississippi State, because I would not be shocked if every single one of them is. Dudy Noble is, by far the biggest stadium in all of college baseball. To me, it's the best stadium in college baseball because I'm a diehard homer. I'm Mississippi State alum, baby. I'll die on that hill. Dudy Noble, especially after the renovations, best spot in all of college baseball, and I will die on that hill. That's just a little taste of the resources that go into Mississippi State baseball. And Zach Selman, the AD that came in after John Cohen hopped over to Auburn to take that AD job, Zach Selman has made a big-time commitment, NIL-wise, to make Mississippi State baseball great. And listen, we can't be, as Mississippi State, we can't really be cocky about most sports. Basketball, definitely can't be cocky there. We're an upstart team. We've been very good over the last several years, but still, I remember what they were like when I was in college, good Lord, about 7 years ago at this point. It ain't what it is now. It certainly is not what it is now. And that was with Ben Howland, when it was slowly but surely getting better. Dark times in the past, and not too distant past, and if there's anything we learned from the football is those bad times can come up in a hurry if you're not careful. And so basketball is still there. Football, we don't even talk about football. That's like, hey, you go 2-10, you don't have a whole lot of room to be confident in anything you're doing. The one sport where we can reasonably say our expectations should be national title level team pretty much every year, Mississippi State baseball is the team. It is the only sport, only major sport, or I think only any sport in Mississippi State that has won a national title. They've won it here recently. We're not far off from that right now. We have the resources for it. We have the facilities for it. And we have, some of the best. Sleeping giant is the best way to describe Mississippi State baseball. With what is put into that, with the environment that they have, there is a lot to sell to play baseball in Starkville. Now, maybe you don't have big cities or anything like that. You're in the middle of nowhere, Mississippi. Call it like it is. Starkville is building. It is building around that university as that university grows. But it's no Paris, France, man. It ain't no New York, New York. It really isn't even a Knoxville, Tennessee. But I'll tell you what baseball has. That's better funding and better facilities than a lot of other schools, and big time commitment NIL wise to make that team great. And I'm real excited about this, man, because I think we got a substantive upgrade in the head coach. And granted, I do not know much about him. All I know is the results that I've seen, and he seems to get more for less than just about any coach in all of college baseball right now. And I think we got a really good hire. I think Zach Selman is, I mean, we'll see how the Jeff Lebby thing works out, but Zach Selman is just bowling strikes on these hires that he's made so far, it feels like. We'll see how it goes. My expectations are very high. I mean, I'll give a lot of leeway in year one as you're instituting a new culture, but I still expect NCAA tournament next year, and I expect good play that continues to improve as the season goes along. And that's not really something I've come to expect under Chris Lamanis. So I'm very excited about this new regime under Brian O'Connor. Who's to say? Under this new regime, maybe I'd take some spring trips down there for Super Bulldog weekend, go on over to Starkville Derby. If you don't know what the Starkville Derby is, I believe it's a fairly new thing. It's not something that was around when I was in college at Starkville, but the gist of it is basically it's a giant wiener dog race. So they get a bunch of wiener dogs in just the main street there in the Cotton District in Starkville, and they just have those cute little dogs racing each other, and it's a whole big event. It's a free event. It is packed to the gills. I mean, it's an event that I want to go to. It's usually somewhere around Super Bulldog weekend. So big time baseball series usually they schedule for that weekend. Spring game generally for that weekend for football. Starkville Derby. Something to consider in years going forward. If baseball is something to write home about, unlike the last couple of years with Chris Lamanis, hey, maybe I'm making more trips back down to Starkville. So this is a very selfish story, but I just wanted to share my excitement because I am excited. Me and the Mississippi State boys, we're feasting right now. We are having the time of our lives, even though our team did just lose in the postseason. We'd mailed it in on this year anyways. The fact that we even made the postseason with how we were doing when Chris Lamanis got fired, nothing short of incredible. So, again, I truly hope that Justin Parker and the staff that was left land on their feet. I really do, because I do think pretty highly of Justin Parker, and I think, you know, I'm gonna turn on the cocky voice here. Maybe one day he will get himself into a position where, you know, you go for a long time as a manager at a lower level Power 5. There's no Power 5. A Power 4 team somewhere in there. And then maybe one day you can get like a Texas A&M, a Mississippi State sort of baseball job. But for right now, it would behoove him to continue to get more reps. Because I think he is going to... I feel like he... You know, maybe it's just the one season, stars in my eyes sort of thing. I really like the way that the team played whenever Justin Parker took over. I hate hiring the interim just because there's stuff going on there usually. I don't love that dynamic. It worked out for LSU, but for most teams it really doesn't. And even in the long term for LSU, I mean, once Coach O won that national championship, he said goodbye to sobriety, and then it was all... The LSU job, I mean, he basically retired from the second they won that national championship in 2019. But it's better for him to go start from scratch somewhere else and kind of build his own culture. I think it would behoove him to do so and kind of experiment and learn in a place that's not quite as big of a stage as Mississippi State baseball. Okay, so with that, we're about 53 minutes into this thing. Perfect timing to cut this thing off right now. So, thank you so much for tuning in to Unqualified Analysis. As always, I'm your host, Caleb V. Follow me on the Twitters at CalebVUA. Shoot me an email over at unqualifiedanalysis@gmail.com. Subscribe wherever you listen to this. Apple, Spotify, YouTube even, if you're venturing out and looking at the YouTube there. Not a super visual show, but maybe you want to see my facial expressions from time to time. Maybe you want to see this cool shirt I'm wearing. You know, it's one I haven't worn in quite a while. Just decided to break it out for the recording session here, especially since I noticed I wore that Zion shirt for probably like 4 of 6 episodes there for a stretch, and that's one that's a frequent contributor to the show. And I just, once I saw that, I was like, okay. And it was like 3 straight episodes. Like, okay, I gotta I gotta kind of change this thing up here. But if you want to see that, go over to the YouTube. Outside of that, hey, thank you all so much for tuning in to Unqualified Analysis. As always, I have got no clue what I'm talking about. And we got another Scotty Scheffler fact for you. So Scotty Scheffler won at the Memorial this weekend. I believe he has won 3 of 4 events, just over the last 4 that he has played. Fun fact, I believe, or maybe he's won 4 events. I gotta look this up. I gotta look this up. Apologies in advance. Mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. I think this is probably the guy that I need to look at. Probably should have picked someone with less tweets. Would have been smart, but here we are. I gotta see the. I should have just gone out of my way and written this down. Now I am reaping what I have sown. Now I am reaping what I have sown. Here it is. I found it, folks. I was correct. 3 of 4 tournaments played this season, Scotty Scheffler has won. In that same time frame, since May 2nd, Scotty Scheffler has won 3 of the last 4 tournaments. Sorry, got to get that right. In that same time frame, the Rockies have won 3 games in 28 games played. The Rockies are actually on pace to annihilate the White Sox record from last year for worst record of all time. I believe the White Sox had like 15, 16 wins by this point. I believe the Rockies have 9 right now. They have 9 whole wins in like 40-some, 50-some games played. Just insane levels of suck. In a place where they should have a much better team, I feel like, if you decided to spend money. Different story for a different day. That's your wild Scotty Scheffler fact. Might be chasing Tiger. We'll see how that goes. Maybe I'll start talking about golf on this show if that ends up being the case. But yeah, I think we're pretty much done with that. I appreciate you all tuning in. Got to suppress the gas there for a second. Appreciate you all tuning in. I'm going to go edit this thing, get it uploaded. You guys have yourself a good week. Have yourself a good weekend after that. And then I'll see you guys again next Tuesday. Okay there? All right. Goodbye.